Now what you don't want to see is your fish doing this, because when your fish are doing this, that means they've got white spot. Now the two main reasons why your fish will get white spot is if you put your fish into full salinity. I highly recommend adding fish when your salinity is lower. In a perfect world, I would put the fish into a quarantine tank and run the salinity about 0.020 or even 0.018 or specific gravity, and then I would slowly raise the salinity, leave the fish in the quarantine tank for a month before you put the fish into the main display tank. If you go and get fish and you put them straight into a display tank with beautiful corals like this, and your salinity or specific gravity is 0.025, the fish cannot handle going up in the salinity. So most exporters tend to run a very low salinity, 1.017, 1.018, or even lower than that sometimes, or specific gravity. And then regardless of what your retailer does, you definitely don't want to be adding the fish into 0.025 or even 0.026, otherwise it's just too much change. So I don't really want to go up at all, maybe 1 degree, 2 degrees maximum. But if you buy a fish that came from an importer that had a very low salinity, then it gets acclimatized into the retailer's tank, which is normally more like 0.019 or 0.020, then it goes up into yours of potentially 2.5. It's just too much, and you end up getting white spot and the fish die. So the two main reasons why you get white spot, one is adding the fish into high salinity, because fish cannot go up in salinity, they can go down. Or if you add fish more regularly than once a month. So you put the fish in, you wait a month, then you put more fish in, then you wait a month. So for a beautiful tank with amazing corals like this, if you want to run fish, you've really got to think about a quarantine tank. Otherwise, you have to lower the salinity to add the fish and then slowly raise it back up again, which will stress the coral. So when your tank is as beautiful as this one, it's really not worth stressing the coral to add new fish. So a quarantine tank is absolutely the best thing you can do. And using something like a sump as a quarantine tank is not a quarantine tank. It must be a separate body of water. The other thing that will help is a UV sterilizer. That will help in this regard. And there are various medications that claim to be reef safe that are potentially better than nothing, but they don't really do much. They're not powerful enough. Then the other thing is to be aware of things like cleaner shrimp. So adding cleaner shrimp can absolutely help, because cleaner shrimp can reduce the amount of white spot pathogens in the water. But the only way to be safe is get a quarantine tank. So an Aquarel Ledi or something like that would be a perfect quarantine tank. And the other problem is that most of the time when you get white spot, it's when your tank's going really, really well, corals are going really, really well, and it's that last fish, that one that you probably shouldn't have got, that ends up getting white spot. And the problem with getting white spot is that quite often that will go through your rest of your fish and can wipe out your fish, and it's absolutely devastating. So my advice, if you have a beautiful tank, if you have a sexy sump like that, get yourself a quarantine tank. Best thing you'll ever buy.